I did graduate from well, I call it SJC, but USJ in 1973. That was the big year when life began. So special ed was definitely a reason why I went to St. Joe's. It was part of the emphasis there. The Jenger Center was there, so that was like bingo, perfect. School for Young Children, that was so impressive. Sister Mary Felita, or Sister Felita, I think it was. And I was like, man, she's still doing her thing. She's loving this. She's, look at her working with these kids. Very inspirational. It's pretty remarkable that they were, establishing a school and keeping it going and, on and on. They were providing this for women to grow into who they were going to be, taking them from here to there, right? So big role models in that regard, This goes back, way back, to these nuns who thought this was important and did it. I was like, that's amazing. Dr. Castle over at the Jenger Center at the time was another one who was just a very warm, loving, just a great model for the gentleness of being in that position of a teacher and a leader in an educational setting. When I looked back on it and thought about it, I was like, yeah, those are the people that I really looked up to there, and were helpful and impressive for me. I'm from a big family, 7 kids, big crew, third of 7. So my younger years was like, strolling my younger brothers around, taking care of them, bossing them around, that kind of thing. Back in our day, this was my era, the Disney, Wonderful World of Disney was big due on the weekends, Sunday night. And there was a program that they presented about teachers of blind and deaf kids, and it captured my attention. I thought this was like, wow, this is amazing. And then the program, it was a movie called The Miracle Worker. That was the thing that just absolutely was like, this is what I want to do. I want to see people who are in this state and help bring them over to some better place. Go from here and help guide them over to here. I realized that idea was a solid idea of mine when I was at St. Joe's. When we were asked to write down our philosophy of education in one of our classes, that was one of the actual kind of thought processes that was going on. It was like, I want to take people where they're at and help them to go someplace bigger, better, more, more for them. That has been a very common thread, and it's been a common thread in like the shows I like to watch or the movies I've enjoyed over time, So those kinds of things, I love those kinds of things. Those are the stories that really, tug at my heart. So I went in with what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a special educator. I came out with that degree and, elementary and special ed. I ended up calling up my former principal at Talcaville School. They actually had a position available, and so I felt like, I'm supposed to do this, I'm called to do this, I know I can do this, and there we go, we're off and running. So that was my first 7 years of teaching was in special ed in Vernon, Connecticut. All of that kind of, I think, blends in with who I am as a Christian believer and follower of Jesus Christ, because along with this understanding of my gifting and calling was a realization that it needs to be used in a bigger way. There's a syncing up of those two things for me that has become really the whole really good flow of life for me. I was in a place where I was in my professional life, I felt very effective. Okay, my school life, it was not quite separate from my belief life, but it was like my faith life, because I felt like I'm supposed to be God's presence in that place, but it wasn't anything I could do overtly in terms of sharing my faith and sharing my beliefs. I was becoming more and more convicted by things that I was reading that my faith life has to go beyond like the church walls, that there's this larger arena. Like a mission is not just a mission trip across the world. It can be a mission just outside your walls, outside your church, in your community kind of thing. So that was the first kind of expansion of my thinking and brain, God's directing in that way. And then that led me to take a little chance on this homework club. in South Providence. One of the women in my church had been on a mission trip to Guatemala, I think. And she said, you know, just up the road, there's all these kids who speak Spanish and other languages. She teaches in Providence. So it was like, I could see myself, I know what they need. They need help after school. So at that time I had middle schoolers. I was in a middle school situation. They found me a kid named Kevin, and Kevin and I became buds Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so he was my first kid. By that time, Meg knew she had a little more going on than just somebody who wanted to be teaching. So she hooked me into the director part of this as well. So she and I did co-directing for a few years, and we did that for about, I think for her it was about a total of 11 years. For me it was about 7. And just had a great time with these kids. The other thing about that though is, you know, this is how God weaves things. I love this. It's like, I didn't really have too much in terms of leadership skills. I started realizing as I was doing this homework club that I was being developed also as a leader, which then led to an invitation to go to Moldova. So when I was given the invitation it was basically one of these things where a guy stood up at church who wanted to lead this group and said, we're looking for people to go to Moldova. How do you put it? We're looking for people to go to Moldova to teach them English and share the gospel. I was like, wait a minute. I like both those things. Those are pretty important things for me, right? It's like the melding that I've been like looking for forever, right? This was the first time it was like, ding, there was like that little ping in my spirit. So I was like, okay, I definitely have to think about this and pray about this. This is going to be something that I'm going to have to really be serious about, because I had that sense of like a yes, okay. So I went. What we do is we teach kids English. We partner with other pastors and local churches in Moldova. So they bring the kids and we bring the teachers and the kind of the program, so to speak. I'll tell you what, it was like, I don't know, a day and a half, and I knew it was like, I love this place. I love these people. I love this place. This is like, you know, it was like nothing I'd ever experienced. You know, it was like literally like a washing over me of just, I really love these people and this place. This is what this feels like, to be like smack in the center, you know, right in the center of where God's calling and purposes and what he's laid into my life all these years and built into me, and his calling for me. It was like, this is like the sweet spot. And it was like, before I left, I knew I was going back. You know, so it was like, okay, we're good, we're gonna do this. And then as each year has subsequently built, it's like, I know that God has like provided more and more and more of what I needed to be doing as a leader. It's just been an interesting continuation of, you know, from here to here, you know, for me, bringing me from here to here, for other individuals that I've worked with, bringing them from one place to another. You know, the kids that we work with at camp, they're considered the poorest country in Europe. They are not allowed into the EU yet, so, you know, because of their whole instability and their whole, you know, but they're getting help, and it's slowly building as they go. Some of these kids come to camp, they haven't seen their parents in years, literally years. You know, so I mean, they need to be loved on, and they need to be, you know, told about a God who loves them, you know, and hasn't given up on them and doesn't give up on them. So it's really to kind of feed into their hearts and spirits, and that's kind of the biggest part of why we're there. We do it thematically every year. We have a theme that God kind of reveals to us each year, and then we work on that. I think it speaks more and more to their spirits than anything. I mean, they enjoy the games, they enjoy the fun, they enjoy the classes, they enjoy the things that we bring for them. When it comes to the heart-to-heart stuff between the teachers and the staff, that's kind of where we're all at there. We're all there for really that reason. So that has also been a really huge part of now retired from teaching and having little grandkids. You know, I want to see all of that all that I have been given and graced with and blessed with to be, as a teacher and person who wants to bring someone along. What better class might I have, right, than my own little grandkids? So they are the treasures right now in our crowns, and those are the ones that we're spending a lot of time with. But in the meantime, my day-to-day is, Vinny and Violet and Theo and Sam, and they're my little, they're my little works in progress. And so what I can pour into them is a blessing for me anyway, and I think it's a blessing for them too. There's just like a natural love for people, love for kids. The kids want to feel that love from you. They, whether it's your grandkids or the kids in Moldova, they respond to it, and they just want to be loved and validated, and they're important. They're important to somebody, So they're important to God, and they're important to me, So that's how I look at it. These were kids that had like some severe problems, whether it was physical or emotional, or behavioral, or all of the above, But there was still that if you could get in there to the place where they knew that you loved them and wanted to, really help them, and there could be a connection in a way that helped each of us kind of learn from each other. This has been a really interesting period for me, a time period where the whole, the fruit of all of this, has really been bearing forth, if you will. It's like that fruit is like really sweet right now. I think it's so important for me anyway, as a person of this is not like a light. This is not religion light for me. It's not, spiritual light for me. It's like, this is a day-to-day relationship, walking with the Lord every day and trying to do what He's asked me to do, but He's the one that gives it to me. So it's a being who He created me to be to the best of I'm going to say our because it's Him working with me to the best of our ability. In this side of heaven. My identity has been one of a teacher, and that's applicable in every part of my life. Okay, whether it's my grandchildren, whether it's a women's group, whether it's a homework club, whether it's Moldova, whether it's, I'm just helping somebody with something, in general. Doesn't make any difference what it is. I'm a teacher, so there's my identity. All of this has been building for such a time as this, not that any of the past has any, it's not minimizing it in any way. It's part of what has been building to bring me to this point. So there's like the melding of my teaching and my desire and my passion for, developing kids and bringing them to a new and a more, and then, also helping them to see that there's more inside. There's more in their hearts and spirits and minds. They're not just intellects, they're spiritual beings connected to a God who loves them, who is, wants to be involved in their lives and knows them intimately and wants to be known by them intimately. Begin to know who you are and trust who you are, and trust that God has given you gifts to use and an identity to be brought kind of to the world, brought forward. I was really fortunate. I think I was really fortunate in the sense that I knew who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do, and I could kind of like go after that. So St. Joe's just ended up making sense on so many levels, and I think it was, it was the place I was supposed to be.